are not going to go out and preach to the Muslims. They're not going like you look at our biggest show we ever did was with Sam Shamoon because he's speaking fiery and he's like, Islam is literally worshiping Satan. Like that's what young men are attracted to. They're not going to come to your gay freaking lay ministry thing with 27 women and four old men who got dragged there.
So on the flight down to the conference, I first dreaded this because a young girl sits next to me. She was 26, and I could see it in her eyes as she sat down. I'm like, oh no, she's a sanguine like Anthony. It's 5 a.m. in the morning. I just want to close my eyes and sleep, and she's going to talk to me. Sure enough, she did. But it turns out, like, instantly she sits down. She's like, oh, what's your name? I'm like, oh, man.
No, my name is I'm going to sleep tonight.
But turns out she was Catholic, and she thought it was cool. I was going down to, well, I said I was going down to speak at a conference because it's hard to explain. I'm going down because I got canceled to speak at a conference. But anyways, but so it turns out she's Catholic, and she actually goes to the Novus Ordo Mass at the diocesan parish that has the TLM. And the first thing she, brings up, like after we kind of get the pleasantries out of the way, she's like, because I said I'm married, I'm mid-30s, married, 3 kids. She's like, how do I, as a 20-some-year-old Catholic woman, where do I go to find a guy? Yeah. I'm like, well, it's interesting because you go to the one parish that has all the men in the diocese, but you're just going to the wrong mass. Like, if you want to find a Catholic guy, I know there's lots of single Catholic guys at the TLM, and they're just not ever going to go to the mass you go to.
Dude, it's just old people. It's just old people at the Novus Ordo. It's like you get the odd, young guy who having to convert or whatever, but it's just the majority they're just old people. And
yeah, the only young guys that are going to be there are converts who are now Twitter apologists, who are just like, this is the most base thing. Submit to Pope Francis and submit to Rome. And then they're surrounded by boomers and women who don't actually hold the faith. But you're right. I mean, it's just something at the end of the day. It always just goes back to lex orandi, lex credendi. It's like the way you worship is the way you believe. And so if there have a theology of let's make a zillion and one lay theologians and lay ministers, and the Eucharist can be handed out, and there can be dancing, and in your context, Rob, it's just like, yeah, it's just all women. Well, guys don't want to go to that nonsense. I mean, like the conversations in Gen Z circles right now are like, hey, look, Ireland, if you go to Dublin, there are now more Sri Lankan restaurants than there are Irish pubs. What the heck? It's mass migration. So that's the conversation we're talking about in Ireland. It's not about 37 lay women who come together to become theologians. Just nonsense.
It's, man, I like the whole thing we're doing here. I wanted to say to the priest, but I never got a chance to like talk to him one-on-one, but I wanted to say to him, my audience, like we have thousands of young men watching our show, like literally thousands of young men watch our show. They're not coming to your Novus Ordo Mass. Like they're not, it's just what.
And if they are, it's the one unicorn Novus Ordo Mass in that one city. You know what I mean? Like,
or they're trapped 5 hours away from something better, right, and they have no choice, right? But it's just, we get thousands of young men watching our show. They're all fired up for the faith. They want community. They want other men to talk to. They want to see reverence at Mass, and they're not going to get it if they keep kowtowing to these women. Like, you're just not going to get it if you keep letting these women run the damn parish. I just don't. I don't remember that one priest, that one bishop who put out the letter about the music, like not allowing Marty Hagen music, or remember, like
a month ago.
Freaking flipped out because he backpedaled after he got a bunch of complaints. Like, this bishop said something good for his diocese. We praised him. And then in that same episode, somebody's like, nah, dude, he backtracked and sent us the article of him backtracking because somebody complained to him. It's like, you men don't have a freaking backbone. None of you you're all afraid of women. Dude, all I see around me is men afraid of their wives. It makes me sick.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. Did you guys see? It was like 2 or 3 days ago. Pope Francis, before he went in the hospital, he appointed the first female to be head of one of the Roman congregations, the Congregation for Religious. So it's like that's the issue. It's like the parish council nonsense that you guys talk about. It is now finally at Vatican stage.
Yeah.
Well, there's real rumors going around that he might make a female cardinal, since cardinals do not have to be ordained, right?
It wouldn't surprise me. Like, that's just
Dude,
the
there
thing.
would be such uproar.
But, you know,
that would drive that.
It would.
No, but here's the thing: I can see Lofton and Pope Respecter and all those Pope explainers be like, "But they don't actually have to be ordained, so it's really not a problem."
No, exactly. It's like we would have thought. I like to rewatch some of our episodes sometimes, because sometimes like we just have some
that's
really
the opposite
funny one-liners.
of me, man.
And I was watching an episode from us like 9 months ago where, Anthony, you said, man, if they cancel Bishop Strickland, all of American Catholicism is going to be at arms. And I'm like,
no
dang.
one cared.
And I'm like, dang, the Pope splainers who have that brain rot called Pope splaining, they did a really good job. When Pope Francis came out and said all religions lead to God, then he doubled down 2 days later and he said, God wills all religions. It's the diversity of all religions is a gift from God. They've explained that away. So that's the thing. I'm like, I literally think if they were to get a female cardinal, they would just explain away and they do exactly what you said, Rob. They'd be like, well, it's not technically a priest, so it's okay.
But they did, but they did push a ton of even the older generation of Catholics who love Bishop Strickland. A ton of them now think Francis is an anti-pope. Like, I'm telling you, there are tons of older generation boomer Catholics who are just like, this guy's not the Pope. They got rid of Bishop Strickland.